So what did Nietzsche mean when he said that God is dead? Well, people have the tendency to misinterpret Nietzsche all over the place, especially those who are Christian or religious or other God believers, believers in God, whatever. And I've seen quite a lot of videos and read a lot of blogs where people have been getting very upset, especially the Christians, with getting very upset with what they believe to be Nietzsche's theological attacks on them. And so I'm just going to try and clear a few things up if I can. Now, first of all, when Nietzsche says that God is dead, he doesn't mean it in the sense that God actually existed. That's just silly. That's not the argument he's trying to make at all. He's simply saying that God is, we no longer believe in him. That's more what he's saying. He's not trying to make any claims about the actual existence or non-existence of God. And so instead what he's saying is that we just no longer believe in him anymore. And you notice this even in the 1860s when he wrote The Gay Science and the Parable of the Madman. He noticed that people were no longer believers. And so essentially the problem for Nietzsche is not a religious problem as such. It's more of a moral problem, because he thinks that all of our moral values and all of our moral ideals stem from religious origins, which would make sense, as some people might say that our laws, certainly here in England and across most of the world, or most of the Western world anyway, are based on the Ten Commandments, very Christian, with very Christian origins. And so, but nonetheless, Nietzsche would still recognise that most of these laws, if not all of our moral values, were created during a time when people were actually Christians, when people actually believed in God. And so, these moral values that we have were built upon Christian and religious foundations, which, with the things such as sin and the concepts of good and evil and so on and so forth, which kind of make all of our moral values that we have now. And so for Nietzsche, the death of God is simply just recognizing this fact, that people just don't believe in God anymore, and we have killed him, as the madman says in the parable. And so even though people no longer believe in God, they could still have the same morals, or people still have the same morals and values, which require God to be at the center. I mean, if we look around now, there's a lot of atheists and non-God believers who have the same moral values as Christians, essentially. And so, one might say that if you removed God from the equation, then what would be left to hold all of their values and beliefs together? It would just all fall apart. People would start seeing the meaninglessness and purposelessness of it all. And so and so Nietzsche thought that this could lead people towards nihilism once people actually truly realized that God is dead, and that they no longer believe in God, and that they have no foundations for any of their values whatsoever. And this is what Nietzsche was terrified about, and he thought that this was going to be even more, this form of nihilism would be even more destructive than anything Christianity or has ever brought, or certainly anything in the history of the entire world, really. And so this whole death of God thing for Nietzsche was basically just like his starting point. This is where his philosophy starts, essentially, and he then goes on to deconstruct and explain all the origins of these moral values and ideals and beliefs that we have, and he would eventually prescribe a way of overcoming them in a way that we can live in a godless world without having to resort to nihilism and despair, really. Thanks.